The streaming wars are kicking into high gear with HBO Max making a big splash with projects like House of the Dragon and a Green Lantern show.
We'll break down all the newly unveiled details of HBO Max and whether it's worth your time and money.
Stick around for your daily charge. Welcome to the Daily Charge. Today's Wednesday, October 30th. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Joni Salzman.
And here are today's top stories. at&t's WarnerMedia unit needed to make a strong first impression with its HBO Max service. It showed off teases for upcoming projects like the Game of Thrones spin-off, a project by Ridley Scott, and that Green Lantern TV show, which could be amazing or Ryan Reynolds level horrible. In total, it'll offer 10,000 hours of programming but with the streaming wars underway and Apple TV Plus and Disney Plus right around the corner. Did HBO Max succeed in piquing your interest, Joan?
Well, the thing that's going to be interesting for me is my personal scenario, which I think is going to be the same situation for a lot of people. I get HBO GO currently because through a regular pay TV subscription. So we have HBO, the regular traditional linear channel through a pay TV provider, but that pay TV provider isn't DirecTV or at&t. So basically anybody that is a subscriber to regular HBO, anybody that uses HBO GO, unless at&t or DirecTV is your provider for that, you don't get HBO Max unless you also pay another $15.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it piqued my interest, but immediately thereafter, you're like, do I have to start double paying now, or then you get into a headspace of, well, do I cancel the pay TV subscription and get rid of everything? And so it makes the calculus very complicated for anybody that isn't an AT&T inside that bubble already.
Interesting. So that said, with Disney Plus coming out and with we've got Peacock next year and Apple TV Plus, of course, although
on Friday,
on Friday,
it's different, but
which is a little different, but
they want your money too.
That is do you think there is space for all these players to thrive or to exist at this point?
I think they can all exist. Whether they'll all thrive is the question. And the big thing to talk about here is that $15 price.
Yeah.
That's triple Apple TV Plus. It's double Disney Plus.
Yep.
It's even more than Netflix's most popular plan. It's basically on par with Netflix's highest premium level subscription tier. So it's basically the priciest service out there. Now, at&t and WarnerMedia have said that they're going to lower the price with an ad-supported tier within the first year. So there will be an option. I presume it's not going to be free with ads because there's no way they could have enough ads to make that worth it to be free. But they will have a discounted price depending on what they decide. They didn't say what it would be. A discounted price somewhere below that $15 level if you're willing to sit through ads while you watch all this stuff.
It's very interesting, the notion of watching traditional HBO shows like
with
Game of Thrones
advertising
and then seeing commercials pop up in the middle, because that's so not. I mean, that's not TV. That's the whole premise of HBO, right?
And that's part of the problem too, is that shows like they've licensed Friends and Big Bang Theory. Those are written and scripted for commercial breaks. One of the reasons that auteur TV makers have liked HBO is the creative freedom, including not having to structure your acts of your storytelling to you got to have the 30, you got to have a break right after 3 minutes, you got to have a break after 7 minutes. You don't have to work within those acts.
There's actual tangible changes, you have to build in little cliffhangers before a commercial break, right?
Exactly. And so that means that it's going to be even more unnatural to be sticking ads in the best content that they're making.
Now, I know you watched this via live stream, as did I, and it was a little disappointing that they kind of blacked out a bunch of the content. But in terms of the teases on the content they had, obviously House of the Dragon.
Right.
I keep getting that wrong.
Not House of Cards.
Right. House of the Dragon.
Don't get it twisted.
Was a headliner in terms of content we're going to see. But was there anything else that kind of stuck out at you that that would actually motivate someone to actually sign up for the service?
Well, the issue that we have with HBO Max is that it's kind of in between Apple TV and Disney Plus. They have these franchises like Game of Thrones to build off of. Disney Plus has Marvel. HBO Max also has DC, and they're building a lot of shows like Green Lantern and some other DC related shows for this service. So you've got people that already know those franchises that would be interested, but they also are struggling against this concept of they have a lot of stuff that's going to be just kind of like original IP that people aren't necessarily like. Maybe they'll be interested in Gina Rodriguez from Jane the Virgin. She's going to be in a movie. Maybe they're really big fans of that actress, but it's just a lower level of mass interest when it's individual creators, just because not very many individual creators have the gigantic kind of following that a Game of Thrones or a Marvel or a DC does.
I mean, one creator, Ridley Scott, that was a fairly high-profile project. I mean, is that one that you think gets lost in the kind of the noise of all these different streaming services, or like, is there hope for some of these like high-profile directors?
Yeah, I mean, these high-profile directors are going to. It's not even just the noise of all these different services. There's also a lot of noise on this service itself. Like, at least with Apple, it's like, we've only got 9 shows, so it's hard to get them confused.
Right.
With Disney, they have this sort of built-in, like, clustering structure where, like, there's going to be stuff that's Disney proper, stuff that's Pixar, stuff that's Marvel, stuff that's Star Wars, stuff that's Nat Geo. Like, at least you can, like, grasp on to what they have generally by those sort of verticals. With HBO Max, it's like, we've got HBO, we've got Warner Brothers stuff, we've got DC, we've got Ridley Scott, we've got Rick and Morty, we've got South Park. South Park is Comedy Central. That's not even, it's all a mishmash. And so it's going to be more difficult to instantaneously think I'm going to go to HBO Max for that.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting dilemma, having too much content and like not particularly organized. It's just like, it's everything.
Yeah, right now it seems very jumbled and hard to process.
All right, let's take a breath here and turn to our audience on YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope to see if anyone out there has any questions about the HBO Max service so far. Anybody turned off by the price? And who's standing in line to sign up? Probably no one, but sound off now and we'll see how much we can cover. BVG?
Yeah, so I was not really going to be all that on board for the HBO Max. Not anything against it, but I kind of figured like, okay, this is one I can probably duck. And then they announced the $15 price tag. I'm like, whew, dodge that bullet. And then they announced Berlantiverse Green Lantern show, and I went, crap!
What, is that a crap like you're excited about or not excited about it?
That's a crap because I friggin' love Green Lantern. I'm wearing a Green Lantern belt as we speak.
I mean, keep in mind, Greg Berlanti is the one who wrote the Green Lantern movie starring Ryan Reynolds, which was really terrible.
When did that
That's
movie
not true.
I forget.
Well, it came out like 15 years ago.
It was a while ago.
It was a while ago. So Greg Berlanti, for whatever qualms people have about the
8 years ago.
8 years. Oh,
okay.
Really? It was
2011.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago. Well, anyways, Greg Berlanti, he Green Lantern the movie isn't the only credit on his resume. Like, this guy's created Riverdale. Yes. He's really excelled at these hits, like these young adult hits in TV and in film. So he's had a lot of
I think most of those DC comic shows on CW now are from
they're related to him.
So I get it, but also I'm a little leery. It's like the same two combo.
He got burns.
Yeah, man.
He broke your heart.
He did. I mean, not that I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, but I did appreciate the character as a kid, so it was just a terrible movie.
It is a terrible movie. I'm not defending the movie, but I love Green Lantern, and I'm hoping that somebody can finally get it right. So I might actually have to sign up for HBO Max.
Wow.
Yep. Sorry, everybody. I know I'm disappointing you. Okay, next question's coming from Timothy. Sigh, more streaming services. I'm just curious, who's actually winning in this competition? Amazon's AWS, Google's Cloud, and or Microsoft's Azure? Seems like a lose-lose for customers.
In terms of who's winning, like on the back end, like you mentioned AWS and Azure, interesting. So Amazon uses its like streaming backend service for obviously its own video. It also, I believe, is still the provider for Netflix, which is the biggest place where people stream video worldwide. But those contracts, I don't think those contracts really are going to have much of an impact on consumers in terms of like who's winning. I mean, I think that it's good for consumers to have more streaming options. Yeah. Generally, it's just it's good compared to being locked into the traditional bundle where you have, instead of paying, you can at least pick which services you want easier than you did when it's like, well, if I want a couple of these channels, I have to pay $200 for everything.
It does get a little complicated, like, because it's a similar principle. It's like, I like this one show on this one service, so I have to pay $10 a month for that, but I also like this one show on this other service, so that And like if you start cobbling together, it becomes
expensive.
more expensive than the traditional cable bundle, right? If you like start adding them up plus the internet service, then all of a sudden that's a pretty pricey proposition.
Yeah, but it's not good. That's the future. It's the way it's gonna be.
I know. We asked for this.
Everyone wanted a la carte channels.
We did.
And I said no. That's not what you want. You say you want it, but you don't.
It's not necessarily a la carte channels that we have though. We've got like little bundles of channels.
They're just smaller bundles.
Yeah.
Ouch. Okay. Besides password sharing, do you see any rising or changing in family plans in the near future?
Yeah.
Ooh, good question.
So I don't think that they mentioned any sort of. I know that you can have multiple profiles for HBO Max, which means that people in your household can. Something actually that's interesting about HBO Max that's actually kind of innovative is that they're going to allow co-viewing with profiles. So like previously, like if it's if you're watching something like the family and the kids are watching it, the adults and the kids are watching it together, if it's on somebody's like adult profile, then you continue to get like kids recommendations, even though it's not just you watching it, because you're watching it as a family. So that way it can understand who's watching what and have recommendations, algorithmic recommendations be more tailored, instead of having like profiles be ghettoized as like the dad's account is the one that has where they only watch the R-rated thing. The mom's account is where you watch the family stuff. So that, anyways, we know that there are multiple profiles allowed in HBO Max. They didn't mention anything about sharing with family. I don't believe they specified like password sharing soft barriers. Okay. What most people do is, instead of having like actual crackdowns on password sharing, most subscription services limit the number of simultaneous streams. And that by virtue, like you can give your password to as many people as you want. They don't come down and hunt you out and like take you to court or like kick you out of the service for it. But if you're sharing it with a ton of people and you only have like 2 to 5 simultaneous streams, you're going to hit up against that before.
So did they offer how many streams they would provide for paying service?
I don't think they specified how many simultaneous streams, but I can look that up and we can like tweet it out if I can find it.
Yeah, because that would be. I mean, that's why we share our Netflix account, and so we have a couple of extra. Like we paid extra for the extra streams.
Right,
so,
I paid extra for the extra streams and the 4K.
Yeah.
But
actually, I didn't. My brother did.
He's in your household, even though he lives in like California.
He's across the country. Hopefully Netflix doesn't watch you this. Anyway, what else do we have, Brian?
Does HBO Max include all DC video content from the DC Universe service? That's from Ayaz. I want to know this too.
I don't believe that it has everything from DC Universe. I'm not acquainted enough with the DC Universe library, but I don't think this is a like for like. They're just going to take everything from there and shove it into I don't think that that's what's happening.
Although I wouldn't be surprised if down the line, like DC Universe, Crunchyroll, some of these other like ancillary services might get folded in, or some of the content gets shared.
There's going to be Crunchyroll stuff in HBO Max.
Oh, okay.
I'm just not sure if like from whole cloth they're taking the entire catalogs of Crunchyroll, of DC Universe, and just glomming it onto HBO Max. I don't think so, because just by virtue of licensing being so complicated, I'd be really shocked if that was something that they anticipated when they created these services and originally cobbled up.
But they've already like Warner's and AT&T's put money into original DC Universe content, and I wonder if like that stuff gets shifted over to HBO Max at some point, because I don't know what the DC Universe like base is like, but I can't imagine it justifies like the amount of money, their resources they're putting into that original content, at least right now.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm kind of wondering if that's going to be the next inevitable move that we see come out of the streaming landscape. Like, we've seen everybody fraction off, and they're all going to do their own little a la carte thing. When does that bubble break, and we start to see things reaggregate, reorganize themselves into new bundly type things?
I think that'll kind of be happening on an ongoing thing for a long time. Yeah. I think, like, there's still this bifurcation into like these semi-big, like before Netflix, basically, like, I don't know, 7 years ago, before Netflix streaming became a real deal, you only had like cable providers, those gigantic bundles. And now we're in this era of very niche services and small to mid-sized bundles. And those are eating away. There's like chomping down on the gigantic bundles. Those are losing, like, people are fleeing them. So I think it's going to take a really long time before everything sort of settles, and it might never settle. Like we might have a continuing. We might. I think it's going to take a while before we learn which niche services have enough to go on to be on their own, and what kind of things need to be bundled up into a bigger part.
Very well said. Next question is from our friend Storm King. Will Green Lantern be part of the CW universe or DCEU?
What's the DCEU?
The cinematic universe, the DC movies that are all interconnected.
He's asking,
I would argue that the DCEU at this point is not really like its own cohesive connected universe.
I think they kind of said that, didn't they? Like it's
a
DCEU's
series of movies that aren't really related anymore. They're just like the Joker movie has no connection with Batman versus Superman.
Yeah,
thank goodness for that.
Which I saw that. Roger, did you see it?
I did not. I can't watch movies anymore. Bro.
Okay, I didn't.
I don't go out.
Don't be mean.
Don't be mean. Don't lord it over me, man. I can't go out. But I'd be surprised if they were connected. I mean, I think they're trying to like carve out this service as its own. So it'd be kind of weird to have CW shows like all of a sudden like a character from this.
Well, so some CW shows are going to be part of the catalog of HBO Max, and because Greg Berlanti's making Green Lantern and also made many of those shows.
But like they're doing like the CW shows are doing like this big crossover with all these different characters, all the shows. So I'd be surprised if like Green Lantern like pops into the CW shows.
I would be less surprised.
Yeah?
I think it's a possibility.
I mean, that's what Marvel's doing now. You just got to think like DC's got just
true.
as rich a catalog. Why not mix and match?
Strategically, it makes a lot of sense, just given that Marvel has set that course and Marvel's been doing so spectacularly. The fact that Marvel has said we're going to have very tight integration between MCU and the original television shows that they're making, the Marvel television shows they're making for Disney Plus are going to be very tightly integrated with MCU theatrical movies. And so if that's the expectation, and it's kind of, the ones that have been really, really winning on comic book movies, more so than like a cohesive DC sort of cinematic universe, it makes sense that HBO Max and Warner like copies that model.
Actually, I don't know. CW?
It's partly owned.
It's partly owned by
Warner.
So yeah, I guess there's like a corporate incentive to do it.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe. I guess that would get me more excited. I don't know. Not that I watch CW shows anymore, but I used to.
I was really enjoying the Berlanti verse for a while there, but it just got to be too dense and I couldn't keep up with it. So I kind of abandoned it.
Yeah, to the negative of having all those interconnected stories is like I just can't keep up with the many hours of shows that are required each week.
I mean, it's possible everybody gets overloaded by these gigantically dense mythologies and keeping up with them, and then we all just are like, screw it, I'm gonna read Shakespeare, and we all like revert to like the 1600s.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It could happen.
There's got to be some sort of bubble that busts at some point.
Hey, Joan, Imagine Sagi wants to know if you still need HBO Go if you already have HBO Max.
You can still use HBO Go if you have HBO Max. So okay, let's break it down.
But they are different catalogs of content, right?
Sort of. HBO Go, there's 3 HBO streamings. Clear as mud.
Super confusing.
There's 3 HBO streaming services. There is HBO Go, HBO Now, and HBO Max. HBO Go is the version, it's a streaming app you use if you get regular HBO from a pay TV provider. HBO Now is the standalone streaming service. If you don't have a pay TV service that automatically gives you or one that you already have the regular HBO network, you can sign up for HBO Now for and for a while you have, for $15 a month, and that basically gives you a la carte HBO.
It's the same content, right?
It's the same content between HBO Go and HBO Now. The apps just look a little bit different, and who signs up for it depends on if you're already paying for regular HBO or not. Now, HBO Max it'll have everything that HBO Go and HBO Now already have. Plus, it will have like these, I think, 31 original HBO Max shows and movies, and the expanded licensed catalog that includes Friends, Big Bang Theory, Rick and Morty, South Park, and a ton of other stuff. That's only in HBO Max. That's not in the others. If you are an HBO, this is so simple. If you are an HBO Max subscriber, if you're an HBO Max subscriber, that is, you are paying $15 a month to get HBO a la carte streaming only. you are automatically allowed into HBO. Wait,
So HBO Now.
Oh my God.
I get it. If you're
Okay.
if you're an HBO Now customer, current one, you
Right.
switched over to Max.
because they're the same
Same
price.
price.
So basically, you continue to pay $15, but you can switch over to HBO Max and get, for the same price, more stuff.
So is it not automatic switch? It's like you actually have to actively switch?
I'm
Like-
not exactly sure.
Okay.
Like,
Because I imagine like there's some folks who are just stuck with HBO
in
Now,
this
not
very
realizing.
simple structure, I don't know that detail.
But the complicated part is with HBO Go, right?
With HBO Go, if you're already using HBO Go to stream your HBO stuff, unless you are a customer of AT&T or DirecTV to be getting HBO, then you're in the lurch. We don't know if you're going to have access to that like complimentary HBO Max catalog of originals and expanded licensed content. Maybe that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
I mean,
I can't even remember what the original
no,
question.
no, it's whether or not HBO Go can be converted into HBO Max, and I guess
It
the answer
cannot.
is it depends, right? If you're an
Right
AT&T.
now, it depends if you have AT&T. Basically, if you're paying for HBO to AT&T or DirecTV, then yes.
Okay.
But that's not a lot. I mean, DirecTV is a really big satellite provider, so it's huge.
Right.
A lot of people have that. But if you have Comcast, if you have any of the live TV streaming services like Sling or YouTube TV, any of those, you're out of luck. Yeah, and if you have, what's the other satellite?
Dish.
If you have Dish, you're out of
You're
luck.
out of
Yeah.
luck,
Anybody that's not DirecTV or AT&T and you're
What
using
if
HBO
you're
Go,
paying for
you're out of
like
luck.
AT&T's live streaming service?
Yes.
With okay.
Yeah.
So as long as you're paying AT&T.
If you're paying AT&T for HBO already,
Okay.
then you'll be able to access
One of
HBO
their
Max.
15 different streaming
Oh my
service
God.
options.
Oh my God.
We haven't even started talking about the
haven't
AT&T
even-
streaming service options, but
So complicated.
let's not go there.
Keep it simple. Stupid.
All right, did everybody write that down? Because I retain none of
You
that.
don't need to. You can find all that info on CNET,
There you go.
or you will when I have time to actually
Break it down.
break it down because it's so complicated.
super
It's
complicated.
so complicated.
It is complicated, but I think the thing that people care most about is probably that viewing catalog, which you do have a thorough list of
Yeah.
in the links in the description below. So if you
Yeah.
want that full, detailed list of everything that is coming to HBO Max, go in the description below. We'll take care of you. We got a few minutes left, so let's tackle a few more questions. How long until one of these streaming services fold? Is it even a possibility? What would it take for something like that to happen? And then our good friend Timothy does remind Ryan that PlayStation Vue literally just folded.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. PlayStation Vue. That was
That was a shocker.
not
Was it?
surprising. Well, so PS Vue, I would put in a different category than
Yes.
HBO Max,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
PS Vue is one of these live channel streaming services. There's a lot of competition in that space, and it's pretty. The difference between things like HBO Max, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, and Netflix is that there is such an emphasis on exclusive original content in those services. These live TV streaming services, it's basically these channels are commodities. So like if you sign up for PS Vue, you're getting the same. They'll be in different bundles and there'll be different price points, but you're going to get the exact same CNN on any live TV streaming service. So it's much more hard to be competitive in that space than it is in these sort of on-demand exclusive content streaming services that are part of the so-called streaming wars now. As far as which ones are going to fold, I don't think any of them that are being bankrolled by these gigantic monolithic companies are going to be folding anytime soon because they're investing so much. They're like, I mean, HBO Max is getting up to $2 billion in investment next year.
Yep.
Another $1 billion the year after that. And then another $1 billion the year after that. They are pouring insane amount of money.
These are all companies. I mean, they're all essentially like too big to fail, and they're bankrolled by companies who can afford to just keep going with them. Right?
Yeah.
Apple, AT&T.
Netflix isn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
Disney Plus they've restructured the entire company around this as being sort of like the spoke of the wheel of all their content. Peacock, we'll see what that's going to be like. I don't really know exactly how hard they're going to be going into it. That's the one we know least about so far. But HBO Max is also restructuring their company. You know, they're even putting like the fact that they're basically telling people, if you want HBO Max, cancel your pay TV subscription to HBO.
Wow.
Because you can't get right now. They're working on deals with pay TV providers, but why would a pay TV provider say like, sure, I'll offer it for free to my customers when it's a service that only shores up a competitor?
Yeah.
So, it's kind of complicated again, the weeds on those things. But what HBO and Time Warner and at&t are basically doing are saying like, we're not gonna HBO. It's been great having it in the bundle with you pay TV providers, but we know that that's not the future. We're banking on this, and it's structuring the pricing and how they're interacting with their partners. Basically, their pay TV partners for HBO. They're basically sort of being like, thanks, been great. See ya. We'll take money on our own now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Our good buddy Rob on Twitter wants to know if HBO Max is going to include older shows like Arliss.
What's Arliss?
Arliss is like an old HBO show about a sports agent. Robert Wool, I believe, was the actor.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Deep cuts.
Yeah, I know.
Super deep cuts.
Those were those shows that I watched as a kid when I wasn't supposed to be watching HBO.
So wait, like what era was this? Like in the 90s or 80s or
probably 90s.
90s?
Yeah.
So like
definitely
very
not
early.
prestige HBO time. It was like it was edgy content.
Right.
At least for a kid.
So it might. My guess is that they're not going to prioritize that kind of stuff. I don't believe is already available on demand.
I mean, I think
HBO Go or Now.
Yeah, if you can't find on HBO Go or HBO Now, I think.
Don't count on it.
Yeah.
They might bring it, but I don't think it'll be a priority to
I mean,
resurface
those shows were created at a time when like this was not even remotely a possibility.
Right.
So like the rights for any of this stuff was never in contention. So it would just be like going back in the archive and like negotiating rights for shows that I don't know a handful of people like me have watched. So
I don't think it'll be a priority getting those kind of things.
No.
Storm King wants to know if, you know what? No, I take it back. I'm going to save that one for the end. That's going to be our closing thought. You win this time, Storm King.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so intrigued.
Yan asks, with so many choices out there, I think consumers are going to get fatigued from all of the choices. I will just stick to Netflix and maybe add Disney Plus. Yeah, that was my attitude today until Green Lantern showed up. I do want to know if anybody out there is in favor, if you are going to sign up for HBO Max. No one's really kind of given a definitive answer yet. Now that we know the lineup and the price and the date, go ahead and sound off. We're just curious as to who's going to sign into this. Also, we need to have David Katzmeyer back on the show because they formally announced Sisters of Dune, and now I need to talk to him about it.
Because what did they announce?
Sisters of Dune.
Really? They have a Dune show coming?
Yes.
Nice.
We actually already knew that. We knew that before.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Although Dune projects in general have been in cinema have been pretty terrible. So
David Lynch, excuse me?
Well, I'm a bigger fan of the book. Let's just say I appreciated the novels a lot more than the films.
Well, this is a prequel about the Bene Gesserit, so this ought to be good.
Okay.
Before we do say goodbye, besides movies and shows and streaming services, when are we going to get one that's strictly dedicated to sports? Now, bear in mind, a lot of the major sports networks already have their own individual. So, like, there's an NFL network, an MLB network. Do you think there's any chance in hell that somebody could do, like, a ESPN Classic streaming loop and just show, like, old World Series or something like that? Is there room for that in the market?
I'm so glad we saved this question for the end, because if there's anything more complicated than licensing entertainment content, it would be how sports content gets licensed.
I think music's got you beat, Joan, but I see where you're coming from.
No, man.
Really?
No, music is pretty simple. It's pretty cut and dry now.
Also, sports is,
Who
mostly
gets paid is
it's mostly
complicated,
live coverage, right? Like that's where I think the either traditional networks or networks that have mobile apps, like ESPN or our own company, CBS, and CBS Sports, like that's where they're still like. I don't know if anyone's. I'm no longer a huge sports fan now, but like I don't know if I would pay for a catalog of older games.
Yeah.
Like that would be complementary to like the main thing, like watching live sports. So I don't know if it would work.
So I'll try to answer. There's just so much going on. So if the original question is like, will there be like an ESPN Classic style streaming service? I think that's totally possible. ESPN.
He was asking more generically as if there was just going to be like Netflix for sports.
The answer is no, probably not. Because oh my God, it's so complicated. I don't even know. So like you got it's like the word, I guess the best way to describe it is like hellishly disaggregated. Because you've got so many different kinds of sports. Then we've got so many different kinds of leagues and so many different like countries that have their own leagues. And then you've got leagues that span multiple countries. And all of these people, generally speaking, want to stay in traditional linear, at least let's just talk about it in the US, want to stay within traditional linear pay TV because basically that's the only reason people are sticking around for traditional pay TV is because that's where you can get live sports. And that's because it's been the one place where they still have a gigantic, they can draw gigantic audiences there. And that like system is the only place that already has all these like deals and things worked out in a way that works and is generally still working. If we're going to be shifting to a world where all that live, and we're seeing it in dribs and drabs here, where all live sports really migrate over to streaming as the primary place where people watch them. Netflix has consistently said, we do not want live sports because like having to get those deals, like for NFL, it's so expensive. It's outrageously expensive to get those rights because all these people, all these companies that are like, this is the only thing that's going to save pay TV. They're paying more and more and more and more and more and more and more for it.
Right.
So I don't know what it would look like as sports moves into a streaming world. I just don't know how it's going to pan out. What's the most likely scenario?
I mean, we've seen little instances where like Twitter or Amazon, but they just spend a lot of money at this point, and it's like the calculus doesn't really make a lot of sense for how they recoup that cost.
No.
So yeah, it's further away. Maybe an ESPN Classics type app. I'm sure there are folks who would actually pay for that.
And Disney already has ESPN Plus, which is their streaming only sports dedicated streaming service.
Yeah.
But it's telling that ESPN Plus doesn't have any of the live sports that you get on regular ESPN, specifically because that stuff is too valuable.
Right.
And Disney is making too much money from the regular ESPN cash cow to be like, oh yeah, we'll put it in this really cheap streaming service that you can get for like $7 or whatever the price is. The only other thing that I'll say about this, though, is that HBO Max did make a reference to how, not initially, but somewhere down the line, somewhere down the road, HBO Max will include live programming. They didn't around live events. They didn't characterize what kind of live events it was, and that would be the first time that any of these on-demand streaming services, Netflix included, have really been clear about how they want it to be a hybrid of on-demand and live. That was kind of the most forceful that anyone's really said it. And it wasn't even very forceful. It wasn't very clear, but they made it clear, like flag in the ground, that like it'll also eventually have live things.
Okay.
What that means, I don't know.
That is a lot to digest, Joan.
Sorry.
Okay. We're on our way out the door, but we've got so Apple TV Plus is next, then Disney Plus.
Right.
Then early next year we get HBO Max. And then Peacock, right? Those are the ones in order. Anybody know if we're getting any interesting reboots along the way with those? Storm King wants to know if they're getting a Knight Rider reboot.
Peacock is rebooting so much stuff. Peacock is rebooting Battlestar Galactica, which was a reboot.
Yeah. Wait, are they really?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a reboot of the reboot, or is it a reboot of the original?
I don't know if it's a reboot of the reboot or a reboot of the original. I don't know.
From what I heard, it's not tied to the recent series.
Okay. Well, sure. It was only a few years. Well, I guess it was longer than a few years ago, right? When was?
It was like 10 years ago.
Okay, I guess yeah.
Yeah. Also a really good show. But
Knight Rider?
Peacock in particular is going to have a lot of friggin' reboots.
Did you say Knight Rider?
Knight Rider?
You know they tried to reboot that show like twice over.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Team Knight Rider, and then there was like a rather modern one that used a...
It's like Will Arnett or Val Kilmer or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. They're both really bad. Although I love Knight Rider. It's one of those. That's like the quintessential childhood show right there for me. Was Knight Rider.
And we didn't even talk about the prequels for Game of Thrones. We didn't.
Oh
talk
my
about
gosh,
that
you're
at
right.
all.
Well, let's
That's
actually
fine.
let's talk about that for a second.
That's fine.
Can we talk about
That's because Brian is structuring the conversation
around DC?
Yeah.
Around Green Lantern. No, but House of the Dragon. I'm assuming that's a Targaryen. Is a prequel.
Okay. Let me break this down.
Because you are also versed in Game of Thrones knowledge.
It's the only like franchise universe that I actually like really enjoy, and even that I have a lot of problematic issues
we
with.
definitely need to talk about.
Okay,
what is it about?
Okay, so yesterday was yesterday had like in Game of Thrones fashion had a surprise twist to like these Game of Thrones. So yesterday, right before the HBO Max event was supposed to happen, like within 2 hours of it, the Hollywood trade publications started breaking the story that the prequel to Game of Thrones that was furthest along in development, they'd already shot a pilot for it.
Yeah.
This is the one that's supposed to focus on like the origins of like the White Walkers, the era of like the First Men, the time of like the Children of the Forest.
One with Naomi Watts?
And one with Naomi Watts.
Okay, yeah.
That one, done.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's basically dead. Now, Game of Thrones original pilot, fans will remember, like they had to scrap. They like shot it. They had to totally scrap it and redo it.
They had different actors and everything.
Yeah. They spent $10 million on that pilot, which is a lot for a pilot. That's a lot for any show for one episode. So that doesn't mean it's scrapping the pilot and saying that it's like kind of finito. Doesn't mean that prequel idea around that era of time is completely dead, but it seems like that version of it is done. Wow. But then like 2 hours later, we got confirmation that another prequel, this one is based on George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood book, which focuses on the Targaryens, like rise to power. That project, which involves George R.R. Martin, it involves Miguel Sapochnik. How do you pronounce his name?
Like the
director of The Long Night and Battle of Bastards, a really beloved director for Game of Thrones. He also will be producing and directing the first episode. That one, even though they haven't done a pilot, they've ordered that straight to series. So basically they just have scripts and they just have concept and they have people and some people involved, creatives involved. But they're like straight to series, we're going with this. So that's the one that's happening. It's going to focus on the Targaryen lineage, we presume based on Fire and Blood, that it will start off with Aegon Targaryen and his sisters as they conquer Westeros. Like the first time that Targaryens like come from Old Valyria or wherever and establish their dynasty in Westeros. That is the nerdiest conversation I've ever had.
I know.
I'm not.
But I'm sure our viewers would appreciate it because I actually appreciate the context. Because as much of a nerd as I wasn't up to date to what projects were brewing, so that's exciting.
And then there's some other projects that are still going.
They're
but
like
now
4 or 5 or something.
Yeah,
I
mean it's mostly in like they've given the go ahead for people to explore like 5 or something possible.
Are they gonna do one with Arya as she goes west?
They've said I've read that HBO executives has said they don't want to do a spin-off of Arya going east or west of Westeros. West of Westeros. Yes. I read that somewhere. That one of the executives was like, "No,
it's
not
funny because
happening."
when I was watching that scene, I'm like, "Oh, they're totally setting
it up." I know.
All right, we are way over time. I'm just excited in case anybody HBO is listening. If you need another app, if you need a 4th HBO app, go ahead and just give us George Carlin comedy specials on loop. You got enough content to work with there. That's my $1 million contribution concept.
That already exists. It's free. It's called YouTube.
Yeah, you can just watch it.
Are you really advocating piracy on this show? Because I'll tell your boss.
Well, it's not piracy to watch it. It's just on YouTube. It's just piracy to post it.
Fine. My $1 million idea is out the window. That doesn't change the fact that we're way over time. We got to go. Roger.
That was like a $10 idea at most. Sorry.
George Carlin, shut up. I quit.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us live here today. Subscribe and ring the bell so you can join us here live weekday mornings. Also, please take a look in the links below and subscribe to our audio podcast so you can have us on the go. For the Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Joni Salson.
Thanks for joining us.
Can't get enough? Check out the Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get